Hi, you're listening to the Content Sales Podcast, a show all about how to create content to attract, convert, and keep your ideal clients. Welcome to episode 277. I'm Suzi Daphnis, and I am here with my co-host, Michelle Falzon. Hey, Michelle, how are you?
Hi there, Suzi. I'm doing great. It is a big day for the Content Sales Podcast.
It sure is, listener, because after 10 amazing years of producing this show, we are actually saying goodbye to the show with this last Content Sales episode.
And of course, it's a bittersweet moment, ending something that's been a big part of the last decade. Can you believe it? The last decade is a big thing. And yet it's the right time for both of us. We're ending the show on a high and feeling great about what we've created. And it's also both of us doing exactly what we teach on this show, and that's to always keep checking in regarding the content you're creating and making sure it still has a place in your business strategy. And that comes back to the core idea that's been a personal mantra of mine for decades, and also a mantra of this show right from episode 1, which is no content without conversion.
Yeah, I wonder how many times we've said that on the show. I wish maybe AI could tell us how many mentions of no content without conversion was done. And we both strongly believe how important it is to know the conversion job of every piece of content that you're going to put your time and energy into. And we're going to take you a little behind the scenes of the creation of this show today. And, but know that every time we're creating content, we're putting effort into something. So what is the role of that content? And as many of our long-time and loyal listeners will know, we created this show way back in 2015, so 10 years ago. In fact, our first episode was just over 10 years ago. It was published on September the 18th, 2015. And we came together to co-host this show because we didn't know it at the time, but we were very much going into a process of co-creating courses and programs, and the much loved mastermind program, which we've also run for 10 years and also recently celebrated its 10th anniversary. And this podcast was a great way to demonstrate our marketing expertise, to connect with you, to bring some of you along into our world and the different programs that we've done over the last 10 years. And so it's been a great ride.
For sure. And that's definitely happened. We've had people go from listening to this show to becoming her business members, to joining the mastermind, to participating in other programs that we've co-created together. And we've also loved helping all the small business owners all around the world that maybe haven't come in and done those things, but we've also loved helping those people and you to grow your business using strategic content marketing. And we knew when we started this podcast that many people were stuck on the content treadmill, creating content because they thought they needed to have a blog or a newsletter or dance on reels or whatever it was. But they weren't, not that there were reels back in 2015.
No.
But we also knew that was just sucking a lot of time and energy, and that content was very often not connected to conversion activities. And so, we've been really proud of the wonderful community of listeners who've tuned in, who've given us feedback, and most importantly, who've grown their businesses as a result of in some small way, something they might have learned on this show.
Yeah, whether it was a resource or a particular episode, and we're going to tell you what some of our faves were coming up in a little while. But after 10 years, our business strategies and plans are changing. From the 1st of January, for example, the mastermind program, the Marketing Success Mastermind specifically, that we've been running for 10 years, it will no longer be a Her Business program. Now, this has been one of the most rewarding parts of my work because I've gotten to work closely with Michelle and closely with women to grow their confidence in their marketing and create marketing that supports their dreams and help many of them scale their businesses. And after a decade, I know in my bones that it's time for me to make space for something new. And I'm feeling called to teach and create in different ways, and to focus on the topics that I feel are most relevant for our ideal clients right now and where they're at, and to create some breathing room in my calendar for myself and for my team. But the good news is that the Marketing Success Mastermind isn't going to end. Michelle is going to pick up the ball and run with it and lead that moving forward. And as you know, if you know anything about the program, you'll know that the program was a co-creation, and Michelle's been such an integral part of its delivery and its design from the very beginning. And I really couldn't imagine a better person to, move the program forward and to guide you. And I'm so deeply proud of what we've built together, and so grateful for every conversation and win and breakthrough that's been shared in the mastermind community. And I'm excited for what is next for the women who are, moving forward with the mastermind, excited for her business and her business team and what we'll be creating next, excited for Michelle as she moves into this new role of being at the helm of the program. And as such, we thought about it and we thought, okay, well, Content Sells has probably done what it set out to do, and so it's time to end it. And so today we want to take some time to acknowledge you and thank you so much for listening, whether you've listened to one episode or like a lot of women, you're like, okay, I started on episode 250, but I'm going back to episode 1 and listening to the whole thing again. It's been just a privilege, and we've loved doing this show for you, and we want to share a few memories and a few insights in this last episode.
Yeah, it really has been a wonderful ride, and I am excited for you, Suzi, as you step into all the great things that I know are ahead for you, and I'm excited about the mastermind for moving forward, and we'll chat a bit more about what's next for both of us a bit later in the show. But for now, it really has been, and that word privilege will probably come up a few times on this episode, but it really has been such a privilege to show up every 2 weeks with a show that we have put our hearts and souls into. And I've loved all of it. And I actually cannot believe it's been 10 years. It just blows my mind. In fact, Suzi, I was looking at some stats about podcasts, and our 10-year show is definitely a bit of a unicorn. There's this great 2025 report that Riverside put out, and we'll put a link in the show notes to this today if you're curious as well. But it found 44% of podcasts, that's nearly half of all podcasts, don't make it past episode 3.
It's ridiculous.
Right. And that's a bit of that whole, I'm going to start a podcast, but then not having the reason for it. You know what I mean? That's like evidence of what this whole show's about. And here's the thing also, only 8%. So this number drops dramatically. Only 8% of podcasts, I just could not believe this, make it past 10 episodes. And the average podcast lifespan is estimated to be around 174 days, or about 6 months. So almost no podcasts make it to 100 episodes or 5 years. So 10 years, like practically unheard of.
Pat on back. Yeah. And it has been a labor of love, and so as I mentioned earlier, we thought it might be good to share a couple of our insights. And those stats, while disappointing, I just want to say, if you have a podcast and you have been at it now for 1-2 years, just know that yours is probably a unicorn too, because you are still at it. But it still comes back to what we were saying earlier. It's like being really clear on the reason for doing it. This show is amazing. Women love it. The content is, I think, some of the best in the area of content marketing content. But does the time and effort and resources that go in it line up with where we're moving to? And so that's the question that we asked ourselves. So right now we thought it might be good to share a couple of our insights after 10 years of producing a podcast, a successful podcast. And while there are so many lessons and things that I could say, there are a couple of things that I made note of as I was reflecting on this decade of Content Sells. And the first one is understanding the ideal client. The episodes that landed best, we feel, when we look at our statistics, were the ones that were most useful for the specific problems that our ideal listener was having. And over years of working very closely with women who are just like our listeners, we've come to really understand those problems. And often the inspiration for an episode has come from a direct conversation with a client or a comment they've made in a Facebook group or at an event, etc. So really understanding the ideal client. And as I'm recapping these, it's also for you to think about your own content. How do these principles, if you like, relate? Consistency. And so, as Michelle said, we've been doing this for 10 years. Every 2 weeks we show up. Now, we could have said, you know what, we are going to go more intense. We're going to have a weekly show. But we couldn't sustain that. But we have been super consistent with showing up every 2 weeks. I think we had one period we were both traveling, we were so strapped where we moved to a 3-week, every 3 weeks, but it's happened once in 10 years. But the relationships that we've built, like there's no ad or algorithm that can replicate you showing up consistently for your ideal clients. And the other thing, Michelle, do you want to say anything? Just jump in if you need to, because I've got more words.
No, I love it. I'm listening with bated breath. Please go on.
Okay. The other thing is collaboration, making it so much easier. And having Michelle as a co-host meant that it was easier to spark ideas when we were together and to have different perspectives and different resources available to us and a pool of possible guests. We've had the most amazing guests on the show and frameworks and ideas and language that just wouldn't have existed if either of us was doing this program in isolation. And the other thing was that the podcast and your podcast, if you have one, or your content, anything you do this intensely, becomes part of your body of work. And I know for me, and you can speak for yourself, obviously, it sharpens your thinking, it refines your message, it contributes to the legacy and what you're known for and what you're the go-to person for. And also we've been able to refer back to this body of work again and again and again and use the same information across the Her Business Network and within the mastermind and beyond and vice versa. It's just being the gift that keeps on giving, and even though this is the last episode, the back catalogue is there, that source of really, really rich foundational marketing training is there, and it remains part of our legacy moving forward, Michelle. The other thing I want to say is about, I'm sorry, say something.
No, I couldn't agree more. I love that point about legacy, and it gives me a warm feeling, knowing that all this work remains and will continue to add value.
Yeah. And I think generosity is the other thing I want to talk about, like giving value freely. It really builds trust, authority. Yes, we cross-promote the different programs we do, and sometimes we have ads at the top or the tail of a podcast, but we have put all this value, this advice, our experience, the resources of the Her Business team, who I'll talk about later, that generosity has built trust and authority and community in a way that pays dividends and will pay dividends. So, listener, whoever you are, and I probably know many of you and your names, but I just want to say thank you for trusting our advice. And, if you create any content, that while it's free, there's a cost in time and energy and resources, from yourself or your team when you do give generously. But again, if generosity is a high value for me. The other thing is that your voice strengthens the more you use it. I know for you, Michelle, this was your first podcast. So, it teaches us to trust our expertise and to articulate it in a way that it can reach many people, and it really shows what we stand for. The other thing is being useful, which is kind of tied to generosity a little bit, but we try as much as possible with the episodes to be as useful as we can. So every one of them, almost every one, is like a little mini marketing class. And, sometimes a single idea in an episode has become the catalyst for someone's breakthrough. And women have, for example, taken on this no content without conversion idea, or they've implemented a new way of preparing and presenting their proposals that has lended them more sales, or they've crafted offers that actually sell, or they've put together webinars that aren't just, useful information, but they're actually converting people into buyers. They're my words for now.
Oh, such great words. I love it. Wasn't it an interesting exercise, just sort of delving into, what are my insights from the last 10 years? It was such a big, I found there were so many things in that well. And I love what you said about generosity and also strengthening your voice over time. I want to talk about that first episode a little later, but I think about how I showed up then and how I'm showing up now, and I can see the strengthening of my voice over that time. I can see how anything we're doing over and over again really does help us to develop mastery, to find nuances, to find our place in them, to find ourselves in them. And for me, that idea of consistency you touched on is probably one of the key insights that I came to as well. And I think that consistency is such a key with content. It's such a central idea of this show. And when you show up and what you choose to show up for really does shape who you become. Like, we made a decision to show up for this show and to be consistent, and it's definitely had an impact on who I've become as a result. And when you decide to be consistent about something, when you commit to something, there's a rewiring of your brain that happens. Like, I just seem to always have the antenna up, and Susie, I know you did too, where we would message each other and say, this would be a great episode.
Yeah.
Like, we might be on a strategy session with a masterminder, and we'd be messaging each other on Slack saying, oh, this is a great topic for an episode. And we did that many times. So when you've committed to something, your reticular activating system, that antenna inside it starts to work for you. It starts to find great guests or great topic ideas. And that doesn't just apply to a podcast. If you are doing anything in your business, but particularly as it relates to your marketing and your content, what you commit to will shape who you become, and it will help to rewire your brain so you focus and you find more and more value and more things that you've got to say about that. What I also love about consistency is it gives you this opportunity for quick iteration. Like, we practiced in public. Susie was already an accomplished podcaster, but even so, both of us practiced in public about how to talk about this topic and how to invite people to join our mastermind, or how to, does this type of a download work? When we started, we had a dedicated Facebook group for this podcast, and we went, oh, we don't like that. That doesn't really work. We practiced in public, and we had this opportunity every 2 weeks to apply what we've learned. And this committing to something and being consistent, whether it's, I'm going to commit to webinars, and the first webinar was terrible, but I'm going to do another one and another one, is a really great way to build deep skill, to build confidence, and to build your results. And Susie, something I've been thinking about a lot lately is this idea of non-negotiables. And I think consistency is really tied up in this idea. So for the last for 10 years, I've had a personal trainer. But when I travel or when life gets a bit busy, I will often say, I can't make Tuesday's session, or I'll be on a different time zone. We're not going to do anything for the next 2 weeks. But earlier this year, I shifted into a different mindset. And it's around this idea of consistency, that those training sessions were non-negotiable. And so now if I'm in upstate New York and I've got to get up at 3:00 in the morning and it's freezing cold and work out in this tiny little room, sauna room, that's what I'm doing. I do not miss a session. And what happens when you kind of step into these non-negotiables is you don't have to keep choosing it. Like, I don't have to keep choosing to do training. And I felt that way for the last 10 years about the podcast. And it was a commitment, and it became a non-negotiable because we knew where it fit into our strategy. And we were both all in on this show, and we made it work when we were traveling, and we needed to batch 25,000 episodes all at once because we were both going to be away for multiple months at a time. And all of our marketing is like this. So I invite you, as we talk about consistency, to think about, what are your non-negotiables? It's not just related to the podcast, but all the content and all the things in your business. What do you know will fit, that you want to get behind, that you want to go all in on, and that you're prepared to practice in public around, that you don't have to keep choosing, that it is a choice that you've made. Now, ultimately, 10 years down the road, we're making another choice. But for a very long time, that was the thing. It was the non-negotiable. So there's a lot wrapped up in that idea of consistency, but that's probably one of the biggest things that I'm going to take away, that I've really learned deep in my bones about how to show up, how to choose things, and how to be consistent. Is there anything you want to say about that, Susie, or will I move on with more words?
No, I agree. The consistency is key. And, we would schedule, as we look at the calendar, and we schedule, when we're traveling, when we're on vacation, when we're delivering different things, we would always schedule our recording times for content sales. So, I could look at the year and know that on these Mondays we are going to be recording the show, and this is how many episodes are going to be in that recording block. And so that structure, it made it a non-negotiable. It's like, okay, we're recording on that day. We better have in line who the guest is or what the topic is, and that we have the notes, and that, the team knows the release date, like the release dates are all in the calendar. We had our workflows, etc. It was just it became not negotiable. It wasn't like, oh, we didn't get to do the show notes, so we're not releasing tomorrow. No, like, we made it happen. We made it happen because it was a not negotiable that we would be in your feed every 2 weeks. Yeah. Thanks, Michelle.
Mm. Yeah, and something magical happens, when you commit. The whole sort of universe conspires then to help you bring that into reality. And so that's just a really key part of, I think, anything you might want to be doing in your marketing, whether it's nurturing your audience, running webinars, having regular campaigns, if a podcast is in your world, whatever it might be, posting on social media, etc. The other thing, as I reflected, was this idea of not always needing to come up, like not needing to be the dancing bear for your audience. And what I mean by that is not always having to have the next bright, shiny thing, that actually the foundation moves, those core things that your audience needs to understand. You want to keep coming back to them. You can say the same thing 20 different ways, and your audience needs to hear all 20 ways. So sit in the pocket of those things that you know are really foundationally important. I think of it like any concept, like think about the ideal client concept. Think of it like a diamond. It's multifaceted. We can talk about that in so many different ways. And so you've got things like that in your content that you don't have to go, well, once 5 years ago, I talked about XYZ topic. I can't talk about it again. In fact, the opposite is true. You want to be talking about it often and looking at it in different ways and inviting a student on or a client on to do a case study about it or sharing a template about it or digging deeper into one part of it. And this is when your content, the center of your content, becomes very powerful. People know what you stand for. They see you as a trusted authority. They begin to get it. The penny begins to drop. And the deeper you go, the further down into that niche, into that well of content, into that well of core ideas, the more breadth you discover. And I just have found this myself as we've committed to this show. We went deeper and deeper into content marketing and we started to see what people needed. The world opened up inside of that. And this was something that one of our guests, Shelley Brander, spoke about on the great episode we did with her on finding your niche. She works in the knitting niche. And she said, the deeper I go into this niche, the more breadth I discover, the more there is to talk about. And so I just want to encourage you as you're listening to dig in. You can say the same thing 20 different ways and build on it and serve your audience. They need to hear all 20 ways. You have some diamonds in your hands there. So foundational teaching, not needing to feel like the dancing bear that's always coming up with something new, because that's not in service of your audience. They're going to be running around doing this thing and that thing and this thing and that thing, and it can be confusing as well for your messaging. Mm. The other thing, and this is probably the last thing, like I tried to group into just sort of 3 big ideas, was the power of collaboration. This podcast has been truly a collaboration from the beginning, thinking about what it might be or even the possibility of doing this and what it might be called and what did it stand for and how did we want to approach things. And then, of course, the content and the ideas and the delivery and the production and all those things. It's been an absolute pleasure to collaborate on this with you, Suzi, and to I think there's so many things that happen with collaboration. There's accountability. It's like when, I used to have a swim buddy. We'd get up really early in the morning. And if she hadn't been waiting out there in the cold at the beach, I might have stayed in bed. And I think when you've got a person that's in it with you, it's a really wonderful, a wonderful way to kind of spur each other on. And I think about, as I was reflecting on this idea of collaboration, I was thinking about the infinity symbol. It's like the 2 circles that are joined in the middle. And the idea of that is that many times wholeness is drawn as 1 circle. But actually, I think, and many of the Eastern religions and lots of different other people think this, and is that wholeness is actually better symbolized by the infinity symbol, that, you kind of are not just inside a closed system, that you need to step outside yourself and interact with the outside world or with another person or with other ideas and expansion and feed that back in like a constantly flowing loop. And I feel that that's definitely happened in this partnership with you, Suzi. There's been this wonderful, not just that's my bit, that's your bit, but there's been this lovely correlation and collaboration. And, as you do your thing, that inspires me or informs me, and hopefully vice versa. And so as you're listening to this, after 10 years, these are the things I want to say about this show. Maybe you want to look at partnerships and how they might work in your business. They don't have to mean a formal business partner, but what are the partnerships that deepen your work, your commitment, your enjoyment versus dilute? And I think some partnerships can do that as well. And I've always loved that about this project and this partnership with Suzi. I feel it's deepened, it's enriched, and, there's that concept of synergy. So where might you be looking for that? And if you don't have that, if you've got partnerships that are diluting, how might you transform them? Or maybe it's time for those to be not the partnerships you have, or how do you invest in them so that you can, turn them into deeper partnerships? And finally, the collaboration thing is just fun. It was so fun doing this with you, and I feel deep gratitude for the enjoyment, the learning, the collaboration, and they are my three things: consistency, foundation moves, and collaboration.
Thank you. And yes, ditto and right back at you with the fun and the gratitude, and lots of laughter and lots of guffawing in preparation and during some episodes.
Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. And Suzi, I'm curious, after 277 episodes, I'm curious, what are some of, we talked about insights, but what are some of your highlight episodes?
I was thinking about this because I knew, because again, we planned this show, that I wanted to highlight a few episodes, but it was so hard for me to pick just 3 because I've loved so many of the episodes. So should we tag team?
Yes, great idea.
Okay, all right. So and interestingly, some of the earlier episodes have been, for me, some of the favourites. And I say favourites because I felt like when I talked about usefulness before, they've just been episodes that I've referred people back to again and again and again and again. And there's rarely a marketing conversation that I have with a member of her business where I'm not recommending a podcast episode when we're talking about marketing, but also that some of these episodes come up again and again. And one of them was episode number 11, the Step 2 Secret. And in that episode, we looked at the often overlooked, what we call step 2 in your marketing funnel. And that's that critical moment after someone discovers you, but before they buy. And in that episode, we unpack why most small business owners obsess over step 1. That is, I've got my sales page, I'm getting them to opt into something, I'm getting them to take action, I'm getting more visibility. And then they obsess over making the sale, which if we're going in steps, I would call step 3, but they neglect step 2. And that's the taking that moment right when someone takes the first step with you to lead them to the next thing. And instead, we're relying on nurturing and educating and building trust and asking for the sale later. So in that episode, we give a lot of tips on how to create really meaningful step 2 content that bridges the gap between the initial interest and their readiness to purchase. And this we have found in our own experience and in the experience of the women who've used this, that it really dramatically improves conversions. It's just a mistake we see all the time. And so, as I said, this has been one of our most referred to shows. And no, as you're listening, we're going to put links to all these episodes, the best ofs or the faves or whatever we're going to call it, in the show notes. And I'll give you the details a little later on. What about you, Michelle?
Oh, I agree. When I look back over the episodes, there were so many, and I was like, okay, it's impossible for me to choose like my favorites. And I often, when I ask somebody a question, like instead of saying, what's your favorite movie, I'll often say, tell me about one of your favorite movies.
Yeah, great.
It's like it takes the pressure off it being the most favorite. And then I thought, okay, how do I want to look at this? And I love that you have sort of chosen episodes that are so useful to our clients, like episodes that we refer a lot. And I agree completely, with that, particularly step 2. And I would add the episode 2, those early episodes like Ideal Client, they're such foundation to, everything. And I think we both need a T-shirt that says there's a podcast for that, because we've been so many people. And I am really proud of making shows that are relevant and practical. And, I think that everything that's in there will continue to support people. If they need to do a webinar, they're going to find something in there. If they need to figure out how to ramp up their, nurture before a campaign, or how to reach out to somebody after they've lost touch, or, any number of things. They're going to find it in there, and so many different scenarios that you, as you're listening, even though the show's ending, you might find yourself in a scenario in a month's time. There's likely a podcast for that. But my mind went in a slightly different direction with the favorite episodes idea. I was thinking about, maybe selfishly, the experiences, the things that I just think, oh, that was a really cool experience. And what episodes did I kind of really love creating, or that had a fun memory? And the first one that jumped to my mind, Suzi, as soon as I sort of shifted into that frame, was episode 121, which was the content lessons we learned from Lady Gaga. And this feels like I'm just realizing right now, this feels like such a full circle moment, because we are, as we're recording this episode, in our future is tickets to see Lady Gaga again. Just soon.
This is true.
Which is so cool. I love how life works like that. But this was actually quite a long time ago, and I don't remember what year that was. I'll have to look at that. But we had all been in the US, you and your partner PJ and myself, and I can't even remember which of the many events we might have done over there or conferences we might have gone to. But the decision was made. I don't know whose brilliant idea it was. It was probably yours, or maybe it was PJ's, was to go via Las Vegas on the way home and to see Lady Gaga in concert. She was doing a residency. And we thought it might be fun to meet up there and go to her show. And it was truly one of the best shows I've ever seen, because I love those when they do residencies in Las Vegas. The rooms are smaller. It just feels so special. And it was truly such a fun night. And I remember, Suzi, you and I dancing in the marble foyer of the hotel late at night. There was not another soul around, and the music was beaming, and we were just dancing around in there. It was just such a great night. And to be in the presence of someone like Lady Gaga, who has truly been her own person from the beginning. And, it was fun to take a different tack with the show. We recorded the episode from your hotel, your lovely hotel room in Las Vegas, I think. But the biggest lesson from that show, and the thing that I take with me and that I want to really leave here in this episode, was that the promoters of that particular show wanted Lady Gaga just to do all pop shows. She was there for an extended period, as is often the case with those residencies. And, she's just got global hit after global hit. And so, the promoters, the numbers people were like, well, just do all your hits, right? That's what's going to fill rooms. And she wanted to do a mix of pop shows and jazz shows, singing from the great American songbook, some of the most incredible jazz numbers of all time, with a big jazz band sort of singing these classics. And so she did the thing she wanted to do. And of course, full houses every time, incredible success. That was the show you and I got to see, and PJ, we got to see the jazz show.
Yes.
And she proved those promoters wrong, and she did what lit her up. And this is kind of the lesson here that I want to kind of share around this episode. Sometimes better, even when others around you are trying to talk you out of something. There are moments when you just need to follow your gut, even if it doesn't make sense to anybody else, but it makes total sense to you. And so I know when I've done that, magic has followed. Suzi, I know when you've done that, magic has followed. You're doing it right now. And so I just, like Lady Gaga, let's have the courage of our convictions. And I just feel like that's a message that we can hear over and over again.
Yeah, and it was such a fun time. And initially I thought, I didn't want to see the jazz show. I wanted to, hear all the hits. But it was brilliant. And yes to just listening to our voice and being willing to say, no, this is what I truly feel is what needs to be happening in my business, in the way I create, in the way I show up. So good and so much fun. And somewhere there is a video clip of me and Michelle dancing in that foyer that lives on.
Maybe we'll include it in our
Maybe we'll include it in the show notes. Maybe we will. This has been the year of the offer inside of her business, and it was declared that because Michelle and I really wanted to give women resources to not just make offers, but make offers that actually sell. And so we spent a lot of time in the earlier part of this year helping women through different resources and trainings craft offers that sell. And the original messaging or the original episode that covered this topic was way back in episode 23. And again, this is an episode that we found ourselves referring clients back to again and again. And in this episode, we break down the anatomy of an irresistible offer, an offer that converts. And we show you how to craft an offer that feels aligned, it feels valuable, but it's also really easy for your client to say yes to. It's an offer that differentiates you from, you might be shoulder to shoulder with someone in your industry, but you totally stand out because of your offer. And we cover the mistakes that people make, including overstuffing bonuses or confusing features with benefits or focusing so much on the deliverables rather than the outcome or the transformation. And we share really practical frameworks for positioning your offer and articulating, the transformation you provide, addressing objections, packaging your expertise in a way that really feels compelling and ethical, like it's true to you. It's not BS, but it's not pushy. And this episode was so good, and we kept referring back to it. And finally, this year, we actually re-recorded it, and a new, updated, further distinctions, and we even made a great new free download that goes with it. And so I couldn't remember the name of the rename, but it was still around this idea of how to craft an offer that sells. And so what we'll do in the show notes is we'll link to the episode, but we'll also give you access to the free download because it is so useful, whether you are putting together a webinar or a course or a promotion. This is about how to package and price and name and present your offer so that it's so compelling. So that is my second choice of fave episodes.
Such a good one. Such a good one. Yeah. And that might be our most recommended. I don't know. But that's one we've absolutely shared many, many times. And we'll include all the links to every episode we mention in today's show notes. The other episode that I wanted to mention, and this might be cheating because it's actually multiple episodes over the years, but was our annual books episode. So we didn't do this for every one of the 10 years, but certainly for the last quite a few.
4 or 5, maybe?
Yeah. And this is it started off, we just thought, it's the end of the year, let's sort of do a wrap up of our favorite books sort of as we head into the new year, books you might want to read. And then we were like, we loved that episode. Let's do it again, next year. And then it sort of became this annual ritual, which I always loved. And I always enjoyed talking books with you, Suzi, and sharing books with our listeners. And I love also, and we talk about this in those episodes a lot, like books were my first love. You know what I mean? I remember I was a pretty early reader. I was reading before I went to school, and my grandmother gave me this dictionary. It was like a, not annotated, what do you call it? Illustrated dictionary. And I just fell in love with words, and learning from books, even to this day, is still one of my joys. And I think a book is such a beautiful thing because it's relatively low cost and anybody can learn from a book. Anybody can pull themselves up out of whatever situation they're in by learning from the wisdom of others. And so it's just a really close to my heart sort of through line in my life. And I know, Suzi, for you too. But I just adored those episodes. And I also felt it was really useful. We made a download. Each year we published our Content Sells reading list. And again, we'll put a link to that in today's episode. Oh my gosh, check this out. If you have not ever downloaded it, or make sure you get the most recent one, absolutely grab it. We've been building this list for years, not just here in the show, but each of us in our own personal reading and learning about marketing. I think this is one of the best business and personal development reading lists around. And so I suggest you grab that. Many of the books on that list have given us massive breakthroughs, and we're recommending them to our students and clients all the time. And they're just as relevant today as the day they were published, and some of them are new and some of them are 30 years old.
Yeah, absolutely. And, a good book is a good book. And just like we didn't get on the bandwagon with, hypey kind of topics with the show, similarly, the books we recommend, some of them were books that came out the year that we did the book report, but a lot of them were like our old faves, especially the first time we did the report. We were like, what are the books that sit next to our desk that we keep referring back to, that, you know, whether it's the book Grit or it's the book Influence or if it's Made to Stick, or again, there's a bunch of them that are just good books, whether it was, you know, 10 years ago or 30 years ago, you know, that the book came out. So, yeah, I loved those episodes too. And it was good because I could reflect back and go, did I read this year? How much did I read this year? What was, you know, what were my favourite things? What made the most sense? And like you said, sometimes it was a business book. Sometimes it was something that really changed my mindset, or really allowed me to be more visible or to move into a bigger version of myself, that we thought, because, you know, as business owners, you know, we're not just about the marketing, you know, all those things matter. So, yeah, thank you for mentioning that. And while you're talking about resources and we're recommending the books, throughout this show, we have, I don't know the number, Michelle, but we have put together hundreds of downloadable resources, worksheets, templates, checklists. And I have to say that was one of my favorite things as well, is just having not just the audio that people can listen to, and the occasional video episode, but in having these templates that women can use again and again, just like the How to Craft Offers That Sell, or the template on what makes a winning webinar, on the template on, you know, the 16 essential parts of having a great sales page. So as you listen back to the back catalogue, you know, there's so many opportunities for you to download a resource that you can use again and again. So my thing that I want to say, and I thought I was going to talk about another episode, but I decided instead, Michelle, to talk about guests. I think one of my highlights of this show has been having people come on and share their brilliance with us, having a platform for them where they could show up and talk to our audience, having a place where we could introduce you to our own networks, people that are part of our masterminds or people that we've learnt from in faraway countries where perhaps you don't have the same access to them and they'd be willing to do it for us because they knew us or there was an opportunity for them the timing was right. We've also shared the brilliance of many of our members over the years. And the guest episodes are interesting because, you know, the other episodes that are like little mini marketing seminars, you know, they're usually longer and they're very, well, it's us sharing. But when a guest comes in, I never know what's going to happen, right? I never know what little bits of gold they're going to drop. And inevitably, they give more than I ever imagined in value. And so as a little sort of kind of shout out and thank you, I have loved that. I love interviewing people anyway, as you know, Michelle. And this was just another way to bring those people into our world and in turn in your world. And whether it was an author who had a great new book or someone who had tried a strategy that we thought would be really useful for you, or someone, you know, incredible at Instagram or on communication or whatever. Going back to the point about collaboration, like we didn't have to do it on our own. You know, we could bring in other support and other resources to make this happen. So that, yeah, I always had fun when we had interviews. And, 99.99% of them, I think, were incredible.
That celebration, acknowledgement, absolutely. And, you know, I'm thinking about that episode, Toot Your Own Horn, you know. It's great to do that and to realise we did good work. And, you know, I did go back and actually count the number of guests, Susie. We've had over 60 guests.
Wow, that's a lot.
Really?
Wow.
And, you know, many of them have been our friends, our colleagues, our peers, people we mastermind with or work with. And I, too, loved getting to go deeper with them in all kinds of topics and sharing their brilliance. Like I'm thinking about people like Valerie Koo and Jeff Walker and Marisa Murgatroyd and Stu McLaren, Victoria LeBarm, Ryan Levesque, Joanna Weeb, Clint Solder, Susan Bradley, James Wedmore, just to name a few amazing names. And you do want to go back and check out some of the great guests we've had on the show if you haven't seen any or listened to any of those episodes. And Susie, we've also had many her business members and masterminders come to the show as guests, like the fabulous Linda Diggle, who talked about book publishing, and the amazing Amanda Farmer and Fiona Keary and Susan Bell, again, just to name a few. And, you know, it's been such a privilege to, there's that word again, be able to use the show as a platform, you know, to share their brilliance as well. So I'm glad you've called out the guests, and that's sort of like, so I don't feel so bad about cheating with the books episode now, because I feel like that's like 60 episodes that we've just put in. So the final episode that I wanted to share was episode 1. Now, that was called The Content Marketing Universe. And while I think it's a fine episode, I wouldn't say it's necessarily the episode you should go back and listen to, but feel free to begin there. But for me, again, I think, like I said earlier, maybe I was looking at this a little more, just introspectively. It was a threshold moment. It was a threshold for both of us. We moved into becoming co-hosts of this show and running the Content Sales podcast. But for me, it was a threshold moment where I became a podcaster because I had never podcasted before. That episode changed my identity of myself. I went from not being a podcaster to being a podcaster. And I have such a strong memory, Suzi, of where I was when I recorded it. It was in my old office in the house. And I remember the feelings beforehand of like, I don't quite know what's going on here, but I'm just going to go with it and trust my gut and, and trust that I'm going to find my feet in this. And definitely having you knew you had done it. And so it was great to have you kind of holding a lot of that space. But what I take from that and from any of the times that we do anything new is, as you're listening right now, take those chances. Back yourself. Step into a new terrain. Do it scared. Do it not ready. Practice in public. We all feel those butterflies before we do something new. All the people you're out there that you think, oh, they must never feel nervous. Trust me, they do. Or they must never mess up or not know what to talk about. They do. But they're doing it anyway. There is so much growth that happens and so many good things that come from that first step, that threshold moment. And so what threshold are you sitting on right now for your content? Maybe you've thought of a podcast, but I'm not meaning literally about a podcast. Maybe you really know you've got something to say and you've been holding off putting that content into the world in Reels or in saying something in your newsletter or creating that program or raising that price or shifting your business. So what threshold are you sitting on the edge of right now for your content, for your business, for your life? And in some small way, if I can encourage you to go for it, that's what I'm doing right now. Go for it. Crossover. All good things are on the other side of it. Even if you flub, even if you mess up, even if it doesn't turn out, you will always grow, you will always learn. And later when you look back and join the dots, you'll be grateful that you did it.
Thank you, Michelle. I love that. And, I remember, inviting you to co-host this and you said yes to the invitation. And I think that's a lesson. It's like, it might feel like you said, I don't really know what's going on here. I don't know what it means to be a podcaster, but just listen for the clues of, is this going to stretch me? Is it, is this an invitation that I might want to say yes to? And there's definitely some things we want to say no to, right? We don't want bright, shiny objects. And we've talked about that a lot on this show, but sometimes there'll be an invitation that'll come your way that will change your life and change your perception of yourself and change a trajectory for you and your authority and your, a vehicle for you to share your brilliance. And so, as Michelle said, I had a podcast before this one. It was called Social Media for Small Business. I invited the wonderful Kat Matson to do that with me. We had 100 episodes under our belt and we said, I think we're done. I think we said everything there is to say about social media for small business, to get us to this point. And so, but again, it's like, saying the point I wanted to make really was about just saying yes to the invitation, even if you feel not 100% ready, even if it means you have to practice in public and maybe not get it 100% right. And Michelle, you just said, well, maybe that first episode isn't the one that you necessarily want to start on, because like anything, you start, you find your feet, you get better. Our voices got stronger, our clarity got better. We understood our customer. Well, now 10 years in, we understand our customer and what they need and the topics we know will fly better than perhaps we did when we started out. So it's all good. It is all good. It is all good. And so while this show is ending, there's exciting things happening for both of us. And for me, as I mentioned, one of the big changes, and we've talked about the topic of marketing mountains, and your marketing mountains are kind of your product and service range. And so the mountain called the Marketing Success Mastermind is being removed from the Her Business product range. And so that'll be effective at the end of this year. And then Michelle will tell you more about, she'll be moving forward working with the masterminders and moving that program to, whatever its next iteration is. And whatever's next there. And so now I can't stop talk about marketing because it's something I've been doing since my 20s. So we'll continue to provide marketing support and training for women business owners in a different format inside of her business and the programs and the membership and all the things that we do. It's my foundation. We have our Her Business Growth Zones, which are the 8 areas of business that every successful business needs in order to survive. And marketing is one of the ones we get asked about the most. It's one of our most popular. So, the marketing will continue. The other thing is that I am creating some white space in my calendar to just think about what the next way I want to support women business owners is. The Her Business Network will continue to be like Australia's leading community for women who are growing and scaling a business. And what I've been reflecting on is that I'm a woman who has reinvented herself multiple times. And more, I'm bringing those lived experiences into everything that I'm teaching. And so for me, what's really important moving forward is blending business strategy with what your soul and your heart's desires are, and mixing business with personal growth. And I'm embracing my role as a global thought leader in women's entrepreneurship, and thinking about my legacy and my impact, will continue. It would just be in different ways. I don't know what all those ways are, and sometimes we don't need to know, but just to know that our intention is. And for me, it's about creating spaces where women feel empowered and they feel connected and they feel equipped to succeed, and really by their rules, whatever business is right for them. And so while this is a content marketing program and this isn't continuing, I'm still going to be talking marketing funnels, but it's going to be also about how do you funnel more energy and more purpose and more personal power and more happiness and more love and more connection into your life and your business, because we spend way too much time running our businesses to not be actually creating lives that we love. So I don't have fully the form of that work down right now, and I'm creating, as I said, some white space in my schedule to see what emerges. But that's where kind of I'm at the moment, Michelle.
I love it. And so many good things come from white space, from creating that moment just to let the next thing emerge. I absolutely love it.
Yeah. And as I mentioned, you're going to continue working with your clients, which I know you love to do. And there's such a fuel of accomplishment for you. And also, of course, moving forward with the mastermind.
Yeah, 100%. So, as I've shared many times on this show, I'm fortunate to work with really a range of international clients that are up to big things, doing big launches and launching big products and programs. And that work is so inspirational to me, and I know that it really makes a difference to those thought leaders, those experts, those best-selling authors that I work with. And so I will continue to do that. And I'm very excited about continuing the Marketing Success Mastermind forward. And those two things have always really worked well hand in hand, because the perspective I get working inside, really seeing inside deeply, very well run, very successful organizations, gives me a pretty unique perspective to serve all those clients better, but also to bring those learnings back to women in business that perhaps might not necessarily be able to pay high consulting fees that those other clients pay, but they get those same learnings inside the mastermind. So that will continue. The mastermind continues. If you are a listener and you're like, I'm keen on the mastermind, you've still got a place to go and to join the mastermind. And I'm really excited, actually. There's a lot happening in the new year that I think we need to rise to meet the moment. And that includes things like big shifts with AI, but it's not about a technology play. It's really understanding what's going on in the market. I was around when the internet first came around, and, they were tectonic plates that shifted. And we're at a point right now where a lot of the things that used to work won't work, or they won't work the way they used to. And that's going to be a big focus moving forward in the mastermind and in all the work that I do. So watch this space. And And I'm also really interested and working on a number of SaaS products. So there's some software coming. There's some client projects that are really exciting that I'm up to my armpits in right now. And, doing a bit more in front. I've been really a behind the scenes sort of person, and I'm really excited to do a little bit more kind of more in the front side of the marketing, and that's going to be a very interesting journey, another threshold, which I'm very excited about. But, Suzi, doing a show for 10 years comes with a lot of support from a lot of people, and it would be remiss of us to do this episode without acknowledging all the incredible people inside the amazing Her Business team. So many people handling everything so beautifully, from production to graphic design to tech and so much more.
Yeah. And so I want to echo that thanks to the Her Business team, because, a show like this, the way that we do it is touched by pretty much everyone in the organization, from the scheduling of the time that Michelle and I's crazy calendars are going to line up, the stars are going to line up for us to actually record the show, and then, creating the Zoom for which, we're going to use for recording the show, to coordinating the guests and their photos and their bios and the show notes pages and the graphics and the social posts and the emails and the writing to subscribers and the making sure it's, inside of our hub, et cetera, like so many moving parts. And the Her Business team has got this down just to an art. It's just seamless, really, from episode to episode. So thank you, my, huge thanks from me and Michelle to the Her Business team for having been really a part of the reason why this show is successful, because they execute so well on the project that is every single episode. Yeah. And of course, there is you. We want to thank you and acknowledge you for listening to us. And thank you for the reviews. As I mentioned, or I've mentioned in most episodes, we have over 100 5-star reviews. Thank you for sending emails. Thank you for commenting on posts when we post about an episode, and you'll say, yes, I loved it, or I can't wait to listen to this one. And we've loved sharing this connection with you and making this show for you. And so letting us know that you are fans just means so much to me and Michelle. Yeah.
Yeah, we absolutely have loved making this show for you. And the good news is that I would say 90% of the shows are evergreen foundational content, so they're not going away, although, maybe skip past the Clubhouse episode.
Yes, I know. It's like, did you have a dud episode? Yes, one. It was about Clubhouse. If you don't even know what Clubhouse is, don't worry. Don't worry.
Yeah, just forget we mentioned it. But, and this was a real evidence. We tried not to do the bright shinies, because oftentimes bright shinies come and they go. But, a lot of it is really foundational content. They're not going away. That archive is there. You can keep digging back into them over time as you need to upgrade your sales page. Do make sure you check out the episode we have on the sales page. Same as if you're planning a webinar or a podcast or a campaign, you name it, the archive is here for you. And, thank you. Thank you so much for listening, for being a part of this journey, for trusting us with your most precious asset, your time. You've given us, maybe if you've listened to multiple shows, hours and hours of your time, and we've never taken that responsibility lightly. And we are just so grateful for you. And I am so grateful for you as a listener. Thank you. Thank you so very, very much. It would just not have made sense without you. And finally, Suzi, I'd like to thank you for being an amazing podcasting partner, for showing me the ropes when I first got started, when I crossed that threshold. And you do that for so many women. You are a catalyst for so many women. And you've been a pioneer of the podcasting industry in this country, in podcasting, and I definitely learned from the best. And we've had a lot of fun, like I said before. I think we've helped to catalyze each other. I know this partnership with you has definitely helped me to grow and evolve, and I'm always going to think very fondly and in deep gratitude for this amazing decade. I still can't believe I'm saying decade.
I
know. It's just incredible that time moves on and life is very precious, and do the things we want to do and change the things we want to change, right? And I also feel really proud of what we've created together. And I know that while this is the end of the show, you're not getting rid of me that easily. And I'm really looking forward to seeing all the brilliant things you do next.
Oh, thank you. And likewise, and as you're listening, yes, this is a love fest. I want to say to Michelle, I mean, I could not have done a marketing podcast with anyone else. And so thank you for bringing your brilliance, your heart, your fun, your willingness, your dedication to this show and to our listeners. And I can't believe it's a decade either. That's quite a chunk of time. It's quite a lot of time, but it's just been fun along the way. And, when you do find people that you can work with, Michelle and I have co-created so many things. This show is just one of them. And when you can find someone who gets you, who you align with, who you have similar values with, it is priceless. So you're not getting rid of me either. Our creations might just look different. Maybe there'll be more dancing. I don't know.
I like the sounds of that.
So here we are. We're at the end of episode 277, which sounds like a weird number to finish a show on, but it is the final episode being published for this year. So in a moment, I'm going to share a link to the show notes and all the podcasts, the guests, other resources that we've mentioned here inside of today's show. And as Michelle said, it is such evergreen content that it's going to be a great resource for you forever. So it will live on in, an Apple Podcasts, on Spotify, wherever you listen. It'll always be there for you. And then do be sure to be in our world in any way you can, because we both continue to create and support you to be your very best, to grow businesses that are successful, to have marketing that really lands and all those fun things. So before we close up, there's one final review that we want to share with you. And yes, we would still love to receive your ratings and reviews on Apple Podcasts if you enjoyed this episode or any others. We'd love to hear how the show might have impacted you. So you can leave a review on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. You can write to us at podcast@herbusiness.com. You can comment on a social post, whatever you want. We'd love to know what you've enjoyed about the show. And it seems kind of fitting to end with a review from one of our most loyal listeners, the wonderful Christy Lee Billett of People Powered Business. Now, she helps business owners really get it together when it comes to creating the right team, keeping them motivated, making sure that you're compliant, and she cares a lot. She's helped so many members of her business with her expertise. Now, her review is about an episode we did with a guest, as we said, one of our favorites, and a wonderful, wonderful woman who Michelle and I met earlier this year, Gab Burke, and the episode was called How to Grow Your Podcast. And Christy Lee said, I love this episode so much. She said, I'm definitely going to make some changes to my 2 podcasts. So we'll be sure to link to Christy Lee's podcast in the show notes. She said, titles and introduction changes will be the first 2 things I change. They were both pieces of advice that were given in that show. I also realized that I can't see how long someone has listened to in each episode via the hosting platform I use, so I need to look into that more. And so, Christy Lee, thank you so much for telling us how much you loved it. I know that you've already implemented it, and that's the point of the show. That's what I was saying. We want to give you things that are practical, that you can implement, that are going to make a difference. So thank you, Christy Lee, for being a long-time listener. Thank you for leaving multiple reviews and comments about the episodes. So where to next? Anything we've mentioned here on the show can be found in today's show notes. We have put them over at www.herbusiness.com/last1, LASTONE, all one word, herbusiness.com/last1.
I really can't believe we're here, but I do, I feel complete. I feel grateful. I feel happy. Looking forward to continuing to do the work we do in other ways and in other places to support, the women that we love to support, the small business owners we love to support. And as we move ever closer now to our final wrap-up, our final goodbye, I wanted to say thank you again to you, Suzi, and to you, our dear, dear, truly dear listener. It's been really wonderful sharing this journey with you.
Absolutely. Thank you, as Michelle said, for sharing this journey with us. Michelle, thank you for sharing this journey with me. We want to wish you every success in your content marketing and your business, in making the most of this life of ours, doing what you love every day, which is our tagline at Her Business. And again, more than anything, thank you for allowing us into your ears, into your world, into your lives, into your businesses. That's a wrap for the Content Sells podcast. Bye for now.